Well, unfortunately, I think the day has come and you're all finally going to get what you've always wanted from my Let's Be Honest series. I'm Saremy, and today I'm reviewing Sewing Love by Sanae Ishida. And it also says handmade clothes for any body, draft and customize your own patterns. Comments under some of my Let's Be Honest pattern reviews sometimes tell me I'm not harsh enough, but I stand by my reviews. I don't review them to be mean or unnecessarily biased. I present the information to you, I don't leave anything out, and I give you as much information as I can so you can make an informed decision. I like reviews to tell me what to expect, if I'm the target audience and is it worth my money, and I do these to separate out the difference between subjective issues and non-subjective issues. Like, if the pants don't fit, it doesn't mean the pattern is bad. Saying so would be the epitome of excluding others who it could fit, and we don't do that here. Anytime a pattern drafting related book comes on the scene, I always check it out. I'm a trained pattern drafter, and I have been for 30 years. I have yet to see a pattern drafting book surpass the one I learned from in design school. That being said, I don't think it's the only book from which to learn drafting. I understand the one I use has dated images and it's technical, but it's all I've ever needed and it has essentials for women's wear. A home sewist may respond better to content about drafting in a format different from a textbook. Something more approachable since they didn't go through years of design school, and they don't need to. I fully support pattern drafting books aimed at home sewists. After all, most people learn to sew because they want better fitting garments. And having drafting books that are accessible and informative are important. So I always look at new drafting books. They have a high bar to clear, since how can a book about drafting compare to going through years of design school with an instructor? Heck, before I started live streaming, I didn't use home sewing patterns at all. I found it easier to draft my own from my sloper. So I think if one is interested in learning, there's a lot to be gained from drafting your own patterns. But I regret picking this book as my first book to review. I'm not the right person to review this book. I'm sure many of you will say I'm the perfect person to review it because of my drafting experience. But I'm not a beginner, and I think this book is directed at a new drafter. So please understand, I come from a technical background with the benefit of helping thousands of sewists, and my review comes from what they've told me over the years and what they would want to know before buying this book. So let me tell you about the book. The book is called Sewing Love, Handmade Clothes for Any Body by Sanae Ishida. It also has the little descriptor on the front, draft and customize your own patterns. That's what piqued my interest. Ishida is also the author of 2 other sewing books, Sewing Happiness and Animal Friends to Sew. Plus she's written a bunch of cute looking children's books. The reviews on the back talk about the more personal aspect of this book, Ishida's journey to accepting her body and her practice of sewing. Alas, there aren't included reviews regarding the sewing and drafting aspect. So here I am. It is paperback, 270 pages, and costs $29.95 at full US retail. I saw a Kindle version as well, and I know it's available in the public library system. I did not see an audio version, but maybe there is one. I received this book from the publisher when I asked to review it, and I'll be doing a giveaway for my copy inside my guild community. I think the target reader is someone who wants a capsule wardrobe of basics, wants custom clothes to fit their body, someone who is at the beginner skill level since it has an approachable drafting format with very few rules and very little fitting. It feels like it's directed at the reader who would relate to how difficult it is to accept one's body as is and knows what a struggle this can be. And someone who may be less interested in their measurements and needs the encouragement to finally tackle this revealing step. And after all, if we can skip fine-tuning fit, it sounds a lot more appealing. It's a beautiful book, as books are nowadays. There are 15 projects plus slopers. Additionally, each project has at least one variation. There are no physical materials in the book like patterns in an envelope, but there is a downloadable PDF to help the reader draft their sloper and patterns, and I've linked it in the description. There's also no size chart for this book, but it's directed at anyone of any size, and a size chart is unnecessary. Seam allowances are also up to the drafter. Well, that would be you, reader. I polled my sewing community about what they would want in a book review and modified my existing rubric to accommodate their suggestions, plus some of my own. So let's begin. If you're new to my Let's Be Honest pattern review series, welcome. I created a rubric and guide to be able to thoroughly and hopefully fairly review patterns, and there are virtual trophies awarded at the end. They mean nothing and are just a fun addition, except this time. There are links in the description to my rubric and the initial video about talking about how I developed it. I do talk a lot in my reviews about different aspects since I want to make sure I cover what I would want to know if I was trying to decide to purchase something, like a book or a pattern. First off, I'm going to apologize to the author. I love the vibe of this book. The author is likable, and instantly I wanted to hang out with her and chat all about sewing and other stuff. I appreciate her openness about her youth and body struggles, and I can certainly relate. But I will caution other readers that quite a few of her stories will be triggering in regards to body dysmorphia. I didn't enjoy these stories. They made me uncomfortable, and something about them left me feeling like I wished current day Ishida would have sprinkled in a few words of her current understandings. I'm not quite sure what I mean here, but just know that the chapter starting page 3, A Life in Clothes, dives right into this. I can completely relate, but reading her anecdotes and in the way it was written left me feeling things. I wasn't expecting this. I thought it was a book about drafting and customizing my own patterns and making clothes for any body. Maybe the reviews on the back cover should have clued me in, but I was hooked by the front cover and hadn't seen the back. So it took me a little by surprise. All right, let's get to the actual pattern drafting part of this book and why I apologize to the author that I don't have the greatest review for her book. Because I truly would like to know this person. She's down to earth and values life, a good mom, an enthusiastic sewist. She's relatable, and I think she wrote this book as a celebration of accepting her own body as is, and she would like to share that process and underscore it by helping you have good fitting clothes, which always makes us feel a lot better in our own bodies. Essentially, the aim of this book is to help the reader draft a sloper, and then go on to draft the included designs. I didn't realize this book had the aspect of a sloper inside it. I was quite surprised. And just to be clear, a sloper or a block is a pattern that is almost like a replica of you. It's like a second skin. It isn't something you wear out in public. It has very little ease traditionally, and you use it as a template to make other patterns. When you use a sloper or a block, you take out most of the steps for fitting since you've already addressed them. And this book is aimed at helping you draft one so you can make good fitting patterns for garments. A sloper, a block. This is literally the most technical thing someone can make in the sewing world when it comes to fit, and a whole book could be devoted to it. However, this book is not devoted to just drafting a sloper, and this sentence really caught my eye in particular and raised my eyebrows. Remember, the goal here is good enough, and the time you save by not going down the rabbit hole of the perfect sloper will be much better spent on refining the actual garment you'll be making based off of the slopers. Because if you've ever sewn the same pattern in different fabrics, you know that the fit and result are always slightly different. Okay, I have a big bone to pick with this. It is absolutely worth going down the rabbit hole of fitting a sloper. There is no other reason to make one, and if you fit it, well, you'll barely have to do any adjustments to every garment you draft. Let me say this again because it is key to why you draft a sloper. If you have a well-fitted sloper, you will save yourself most of the fitting time on every pattern you draft from it, saving you the effort of fitting for every garment you draft. Yes, you'll have to test your design, but testing your design lets you focus on that aspect, and the fitting will be very minor and less stressful. And I think for the scope of this book, that would be less triggering for the reader if that is why they picked up Ishida's book. And if you're trying to get a wardrobe of good fitting garments for any reason, but especially reasons that touch on insecurities, putting yourself through fitting every garment you draft is not the best way to go about it. So fit your sloper. I'm unfamiliar with the method she uses, and I did not test it. Maybe it gives good results with little trouble. However, it's missing some key elements to help you get the relation of certain points accurate. The author does show herself in her sloper, but honestly, it's not very well fitting. It'll be fine for loose clothing, and a lot of the garments are loose, except the pants. There's something going on there, but they're a bit obscured and it's hard to see. Trust me, I love encouraging everyone to find the love of drafting. Every person deserves clothes that fit. But I also know that can set someone up for frustration. We want success. We want them to draft one of the patterns after making their sloper and go, wow, this is awesome. What should I make from the book next? All right, I know what you're saying. You're saying, but Saremy, there's a section about fitting the sloper. There is indeed, and let me demonstrate the fitting steps. So I feel like I know my review is pretty it's pretty harsh, but I just really wanted to underscore that the fitting examples in here are I feel like there's something missing. Maybe something got missed in the printing of the book because this is what it says. You know what it says. Like this right here, this example. Too tight. The most common area of tightness is the armhole, and the following method of cutting and spreading will add ease, right? And so it gives you a little sloper right here, and then it shows you cutting into your pattern piece and then spreading it apart. But the thing is, if you try and do that, right, if you cut into your your sleeve here, and you try and spread it apart, you can't actually spread apart the place that you're trying to add ease to. Like, it's just not physically possible. You would have to have another thing you're slashing to be able to spread. You need a hinge right there. And if you had darts or something like that, you could do that, but the darts are not encouraged on here, and they, you know, they're encouraged as far as like if you need them, go for it, but they're not really drafted into the sloper, and they're not being used here in the fitting. And so the same thing here, you know, it says, you know, pinch excess gaping, mark on the muslin, and transfer adjustments to the sloper. But, you know, if you wanted to, you know, take in the neckline, you would literally need somewhere else to slice to. So I feel like something happened here in the printing. I'm sure she knows that that wouldn't work, but it's underscored in a couple other places, or at least one other place that I saw. So like right here, you know, so it's doubled down. Like, it's in there a couple times. So I'm not sure how this can work. I must be missing some things, because I feel like all of us kind of know that that isn't possible. So I just wanted to show that one thing especially. Again, I feel terrible for being so harsh, but I run a large community of sewists, and I see and hear their frustration from instructions that left them feeling dejected, like they've done something wrong, and their trust starts to vanish. And I've seen many say they never went back to finishing their sloper because they didn't get any help. The drafting of the designs fell short for me too. I've decided not to go over it a ton, but the instructions are a little loose. It's more of like a do what works for you here, and this is what I did, kind of a guide. And, you know, there's just other little things that I found that were a little bit lacking. So I'm not going to really go over all the drafting. I feel like my review is saying enough, and my review is making me a little uncomfortable. So, but there's things like this, like on this tank top here, you have to raise the armhole on a sleeveless garment so that you don't see inside the garment. And so that's like a very standard thing. There's a standard amount. You go down and out if you're going from a sleeveless garment to a sleeved garment, and you go up and in if you're going from a sleeved garment to a sleeveless garment. And that's not there. Maybe this sloper, the armhole is drafted really tight, and you don't need to do that, but it's just something to watch for. You wouldn't want it to be revealing. A lot of the designs are using bias binding as finishing. There's no facings or anything like that. And this is one thing that's a little bit of a pet peeve for me, is that I feel like to keep garments simple for beginners, oftentimes people will leave off facings and things like that, thinking that the more pattern pieces there are, it may look harder to sew. I don't know. I've never really heard anyone say this. This is my own assumption. But the thing is, binding these types of like necklines and armholes isn't easy. I'm really good at binding. I love binding, and I do not mind bragging at all about my binding skills. I think anyone who's watched me sew knows that, because I did it a lot, because I used to have a business that used a lot of binding. However, when it comes to something like finishing a neckline or an armhole that's sleeveless, and the binding goes to the inside of the garment, it is a very hard thing to get it to lay flat. And you'll see a lot of people, their neckline, when they bind it like that, it actually goes like that. There's like a little wing. Their neckline just kind of wings up. And there's reasons for this, because binding isn't a facing. It's a straight piece of fabric. And even though there's bias and there's some stretch in it, it's not sufficient in order to stretch the length that it needs to become where it's being sewn down. And I have a whole video dedicated to this, just that one thing, because I really feel like beginners get these like simple looking garments and they think it looks really simple, and we all love the look of binding. Like, it's really awesome. I agree, like, it's really cute and I love it. But I do think it's really difficult to sew and get the result that you're thinking you're going to get. And I think people feel really like they did it wrong, when it's really actually kind of a hard thing. I don't usually do it myself. Like, I don't do that to places. Maybe on an armhole, not on a neckline. I get better luck on an armhole than I do on a neckline. A neckline is so prominent and you can see it. So there's a lot of really great tips on how to do it, but they're probably not in here. So there's one other thing I wanted to show you. I didn't look at all of the designs, but like, here's another one. So the underarm it's square. Like, that's the actual underarm seam. It's not rounded. this is going to be problematic. That is definitely going to pop open at some point, unless it's a very, very loose shirt. And you have to draft a sleeve for the sloper in this, but most of the designs don't actually take a set-in sleeve. So I would just skip drafting the sleeve probably, because that's a really hard thing to draft properly. So that's just my 2 cents on that. We all know how opinionated I am. I love set-in sleeves, and I feel like they're the key to having a really good fitting garment, and they really elevate the fit of your garment, especially for people who have never had garments that fit really well. I think a set-in sleeve is key. So I was really thrilled to see it there, and then I think there's really just a handful of garments that use it. So that's all I'm going to talk about with the drafting of this book. It's a beautiful book. It's just that I think that when you're trying to keep things really, really simple and beginner friendly, you forget that beginners really need extra instruction and more details, because there's a lot of subtle things happening when you're doing some of this stuff that isn't really obvious to a beginner. And it's why I know I could do more content for beginners, but I haven't been a beginner for so long, and I respect the fact of how hard it is to be a beginner. And I don't think I'm often the right person to help beginners out, because I forget all the millions of little things my hands are doing. You know, they're really thinking for me at this point. And I love helping beginners, but I feel like most of my content's probably pretty off-putting for them, because I am so cavalier with the way I sew and stuff. So while I think paring things down is very appealing to a beginner, it's not really going to help them out. There are 15 designs, but the variation between them is slight, and you often have to use another design to make the design you want. I don't necessarily think this is bad or good. However, these designs can be found many times over in the sewing pattern world. So what is different about them? Potentially that you used your own sloper to draft them and they'd fit you exceedingly well. But if you didn't fit your sloper, you're basically going to the trouble of drafting a pattern you could have purchased and then fit like you always do. Some of my other issues is there are no flat sketches of each design, so you have to look through the lookbook to see each one. But they're also photographed in a stylistic way, and some details are obscured. The number one thing people want to know about buying a book is, what do they get? And you have to dig into the book to see what designs you get to make. So I thought I'd share the lookbook with you so you can see some of the designs in here. There's a tank top and a shorts with slash pocket, a knit cap sleeve dress, a knit racerback tank dress, and then a dress with pockets here. And then here is the V-neck sleeveless dress under the jacket here, and a cardigan with the curved hem, a bateau top with a back zip A-line skirt right here, and then a V-neck top and wide leg pants with flat front waistband and elastic back, and then a button-down V-neck top and drawstring waistband shorts. The bateau top again with the wide leg pants again, and then the long sleeve tee with cuffs, and then the skirt with an inverted box pleat. And then there's a dress here, banded collar dress, knit cocoon tunic dress and leggings, and a batwing top and leggings. And let's see. There's also a flared coat with a woven t-shirt and straight leg pants with curved pockets, drapey jacket with pockets over a tank top, wide leg pants with flat front waistband, elastic back, the same pant. And then here we have the cardigan over a tank top, and then the Hampton coat over a woven tee and slim fit side zip pants. And then I think this might be the last one. Button down tunic with slim fit side zip pants. Oh, t-shirt, straight leg pants with curved pockets, and then minimalist drapey jacket over knit cap sleeve dress. So those are the styles. I didn't count that, but that's at least 15 because there's some variations as well. So I feel like that's enough of my opinion. I wish Sanae Ishida the best. I appreciated her journey and enthusiasm about making clothes that fit. I guess the book fell short for me as a guide on drafting clothes to fit. All right, so I'm going to fill out my rubric, but I'm not going to go in depth on it. I think we know how I feel about this book, and I feel bad about it. So I'm very committed to being honest, and I do have a soft spot in my heart for drafting, obviously, and accuracy. And I do see a lot of people who don't believe people like me anymore because they've had so many materials and blog posts and whatever that have failed them. And so I am really committed. I'm not on anybody's side. I'm on everybody's side. I'm on Sanae's side, and I'm on your side. And because I just want it all to be a conversation. And I know that's very Pollyanna of me, but at the same time, I'm definitely a Pollyanna type of gal, and I'm definitely one of those people that can work through issues. So the thing is, like, this is a beautiful book. Her fans are going to be thrilled with it. And I just really want to be clear about what to expect. So, all right, so this is my silly little reward system, or not award system, and it's based on points for using the rubric. All right, so I got my rubric in front of me here. I was going to fill it out right here on my page. It's a little easier for me. So for the target reader, this is like, does the book deliver for the intended audience or the intended reader? Is the skill level accurate? Will the intended reader be satisfied with the content from what they saw on the book jacket? And I don't think that this is really great for the target reader. Like I said about what a beginner might want this, but I don't think it's going to help them. I do think they're going to struggle a little bit. So, all right, as far as the layout goes, there is an index, there's a table of contents, there's a glossary. It's pretty easy to find what you're looking for, although I found it a little confusing. Like when I went to draft one of the items, I think it was the tunic, button-down tunic, I could not figure out why it kind of started midway in the drafting. And then I realized it relied on the instructions of the dress right before it in order to draft it. And I just thought, oh, well, I don't really want to sort through this whole this dress draft in order to draft the tunic, when the tunic could have just been drafted from the bateau top. So I just felt like it was a little overly complicated, but I figured it out. And I think that, you know, it's great. There's also a really great resources section. So as far as the layout goes, I'm going to say you can get the job done. All right. Investment worthy. Yeah, if you are committed to figuring out your sloper and you are going to fit things and stuff like that, and you really want to try out the designs, yeah, I think you could get a lot of these designs drafted pretty darn good. As far as coherent, I mean, it's written, the writing is great, but at the same time, I don't think you have enough information to do everything. And like I showed you on the fitting, there's definitely some things missing. So yeah. All right. As far as the accuracy goes, oh, well, yeah, we know how I feel about this. Sizing, couldn't ask for much better. It's for everybody. The materials, I mean, the materials are, you get the PDF download, and this is materials like outside of the actual copy of the book, right? So I looked at the download, and it's actually pretty darn good. I liked it a lot. I like the format and the layout of it. As far as the visuals, the diagrams and everything, yeah, I mean, you'll be able to get the job done. So, you know, but, you know, whether they're accurate, you know, here we are. So, okay, so let's total this up. Each of these columns has some points here. And so let's see, 5, 10, 20, 5, 85, I think is my total here. I'm going to double check that since I think I made an error one time and we've never lived it down. All right, as far as my opinion goes, my opinion is, you know, the overall impression, the experience, the final opinion. Are there things to consider? From the book jacket, did I think the book delivered what it promised? Is the technical information accurate and convey a truthful way to go about sewing and pattern drafting? My opinion on skill level, my takeaways, and who do I think would enjoy this book most? And I'm going to give it a 10 out of 40. I appreciate where this book is coming from. And I know I speak about this a little bit more, so I appreciate where this book is. So my total, oof, I hope she never sees this, is 95. Oh, man. Okay, so let's pull up that 95. Okay, well, this is my first bent pin. I mean, the trophies are cute, aren't they? Go buy her book now. All right. Well, I hope that this was helpful to you. If you've been interested in this book, maybe you hadn't even heard of it, wasn't on your radar. Maybe you'll give it a shot. And if you do, I really want to hear about it. prove me wrong. I would really love that. And I'm just going to leave it there because I feel like this is probably not going to be my best video. So thanks for watching, and let me know what you want me to review next. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.